Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint by Sheng. Chapter 291. Happy Memories. Part 1. One day in the past, Han Su-yeong had said, "The first time I tried creating a clone using Avatar, I gave away too many of my memories and it went out of control." How interesting. Where did you hear that? The character, Han Su-yeong, is curious about you. Your understanding of the character, Han Su-yeong, has increased. Han Su-yeong's clone was looking at me with interest. Her eyes were so vivid that I couldn't help doubting if she was really a clone for a moment. However, the real Han Su-yeong wouldn't be so composed. "I have familiar with your main body." She has a loose mouth. It is a childish provocation, but I will let it pass this time. Your idea is wrong. I'm not Han Su-yeong's clone, but the real Han Su-yeong. What? The shape of this smiling mouth was undoubtedly Han Su-yeong. I have memories that she doesn't have. Memories? What memories? Unlike her, I am tight-lipped. I grasped the hilt of the sword at my waist. I heard that clones will live even if their heads are cut off. In any case, I hadn't come here to waste time. The unbroken faith in my hand cried out violently. The constellation Demon King of Salvation is looking at incarnation, Han Su-yeong. The whole suite shook from the status I released. I heard loud noises from below, but Han Su-yeong wasn't nervous at all. Demon King. You are bigger than I think. The next moment, I realized why she was composed. A net of probability spread over the entire room. The status that I emitted suddenly fell sharply. This area is a non-aggression zone. You are prohibited from fighting in the area for the next hour. A non-aggression zone. Did you make a deal with the Dakibi? It is necessary for a person who can control Yu Jonghyuk. I decided not to think of her as a mere clone anymore. Maybe, as she said, this was the real Han Su-yeong. Then a system message was heard. The character, Han Su-yeong, has triggered the Eyes of Truth. Eyes of Truth. It was an attributes detection skill comparable to Anna Croft's Great Demon's Eye. In this short time, Han Su-yeong tried to read my information. The exclusive skill Fourth Wall is activated. The fourth wall has completely broken down the Eyes of Truth. Sparks flew, and Han Su-yeong hurriedly cancelled the skill. You have a tremendous skill. Han Su-yeong wasn't greedy. She didn't try to break the fourth wall like Yu Jonghyuk and didn't panic like Anna Croft. This calmness wasn't the Han Su-yeong that I knew. Han Su-yeong laughed like it was fun. You can cut off my head later. Shall we play a game? Do you know the divine 3 questions and answers? It was the question and answer exchange I had once done with Ariadne of Olympus. Don't you have questions you were curious about? Let's exchange them one by one. I didn't know what was going on. However, this was clearly a chance for me. I nodded in agreement. Okay. Let's make a rule instead. We are able to lie. Then what is the use of the 3 questions and answers exchange? It is interesting. Han Su-yeong's eyes moved in a smooth curve. It wasn't difficult to read what she was thinking. I smiled and replied, yes, okay. At my answer, messages popped up in the air. The divine 3 questions and answers has begun. Both sides will exchange 3 questions and answers. Both sides can refuse to answer 1 question. The conversation won't end until the questions and answers are fully exchanged. I will ask first. The first question ticket has been used. Tell me about the contents of the Outer World contract you signed with Secretive Plotter. Han Su-yeong shook a bit at my first question. Your understanding of the character, Han Su-yeong, has increased. The key to this exchange was to create concrete questions that were difficult for the other person to avoid. I also had to make the most of the information that could be handed over. Han Su-yeong said to me, you even know this? It isn't easy. Answer me. It means you have also made an outer world covenant. She was quick to notice, just like Han Su-yeong of the 3rd round. Han Su-yeong continued speaking. I have signed an outer world contract with secretive plotter. If he hears what he wants, he will help me complete the world I wanted. The first answer has been received. It wasn't a very informative answer. The important thing was the authenticity of the answer. The exclusive skill Lie Detection LV6 is activated. The character Han Su-yeong has triggered Poker Face LV10. Poker Face has neutralized the effect of lie detection. As expected, she knew this skill. There was Poker Face among the skills that I saw on her character list. Thanks to this skill, it was impossible to find out the truth of the answer using lie detection. Of course, that didn't mean I had no solution. The exclusive skill, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, has been activated. Your understanding of this person is sufficient, and the second stage of Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint is activated. As soon as she became a character, I could read her thoughts just by asking questions. The next moment. I knew it. I told you. Don't step on my feet. Why are you peeking at me? I instantly heard hundreds of voices, and my heart felt like it was going to burst. I didn't have any time to express my astonishment and hurriedly cancelled the skill. Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint has been turned off. I looked at Han Su-yeong blankly, and she had a peculiar smile on her face. I did this just in case, and indeed. I thought there would be such a skill. What was that just now? Is that your second question? I reflexively closed my mouth. Han Su-yeong laughed. Well, I'll answer as a free service. It is an application of the avatar skill. I finally understood what was going on. Han Su-yeong split herself into hundreds by using avatar. I looked at Han Su-yeong's cheerful expression and felt my heart beating quickly. I had never met such an opponent before. Han Su-yeong spoke first. This time I will ask. Incarnation Han Su-yeong has used the first question ticket. Have you ever written a novel called Ways of Survival? Some questions implied information just by the question itself. I knew for sure what this person thought of me. Thus, I had to show off my skills here. That's right. I wrote it. The character Han Su-yeong has used Lie Detection LV10. The exclusive skill Poker Face LV5 is activated. I'm sorry, but I also had the Poker Face skill. Just before I came to this round, I bought a bunch of needed skills to the Dakibi bag. Poker Face has neutralized the effect of lie detection. Han Su-yeong's lips curved slightly at the message. You're really interesting. This person was also interesting. Is this really Yoo Jong-hyuk? Lee Se-ilwa asked like it was unbelievable. Standing in front of her were Iron Blood Supreme King Yoo Jong-hyuk. Yoo Jong-hyuk stood upright and stared into space with blank eyes. People flocked around Yoo Jong-hyuk. It was Lee Jae-hai who scolded them first. What are you all looking at? What's wrong with you when you've often seen him on the screen? It's amazing. This is the first time I've seen him standing still like this. How did you do it? Did you use poison? Even Han Dong-hoon, sitting in the control room, observed Yoo Jong-hyuk through the panel windows. Kim Namwon sneaked up beside Yoo Jong-hyuk and took a subtle pose. Click. Click. Lee Jae-hai frowned as she saw the scene. What are you doing? The surprised Kim Namwon's phone flew into the air. Then a hand stretched out from Kim Namwon's shadow and grabbed the smartphone in place of Kim Namwon. Hey, let's take a photo together. This opportunity isn't common. Hey, shouldn't you leave him alone? Why are you taking photos? Lee Jae-hai grabbed his wrist and roared. Then there was the sound of a photo being taken. The photo showed the expressionless Yoo Jong-hyuk, the giggling Kim Namwon, and the angry Lee Jae-hai. The soldier over there. Don't just stand there and move out of the way. We're taking photos. Lee Hyun-sung stood still in the distance, and Lee Se-ilwa hit Kim Namwon's head. Didn't I tell you to use honorifics with Hyun-sung SSI? I hate it. Stop nagging me. Click. By the way, is this guy really safe? Shall I stab him once? Don't do anything. The guy who climbed up said a strange trigger. If the worst happens, he will start a massacre. Click. Trigger? What trigger? I think he told Yoo Jong-hyuk to go on a rampage if he was harmed. Then, what about this? Kim Namwon smiled and put a hand on Yoo Jong-hyuk's shoulder. Yoo Jong-hyuk didn't react. What? This is okay? Then what about this? People laughed as they surrounded the empty Yoo Jong-hyuk. There were some who were amazed and others who were happy. Click. Several photos were taken and Yoo Jong-hyuk's expression changed little by little. Faint emotions appeared in the depth of his hollow eyes. Maybe they were emotions that Yoo Jong-hyuk himself couldn't understand. His eyes seemed to become hot and his heart was stuffy. However, Yoo Jong-hyuk didn't have a proper consciousness and didn't know what this feeling was. What? I think he just moved. Did you see wrong? No. Really? All he knew were the words left behind by Kim Dokja. Imagine happy memories. Warning. Warning. The Archangel of Flames is approaching. A warning rang in the air and the people attached to Yoo Jong-hyuk were amazed. The first one who screamed was Kim Namwon. What? Fuck. Why is that crazy bitch here? This is bad. Be prepared. Hyunsung, go up and let Master know. As the group scattered, Yoo Jong-hyuk stood in place. Some disturbed people hit him as they passed by. Imagine happy memories. In the urgent situation, Yoo Jong-hyuk stared at the huge panel screen in the air. The dazzling angel burning with red flames was moving. Every time the angel's burning sword moved, the ruined area was engulfed in flames. Yoo Jong-hyuk had a headache. In his empty mind, Yoo Jong-hyuk had seen the angel. Happy memories. Strangely, the memory was unfamiliar and amicable. It was like a thick wall was in the middle of this distant and cold memory. In his memory, she was a small doll. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire is laughing. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire is hoping you won't make any unnecessary sacrifices. It wasn't her memory. It was a record left on someone's wall and he just stole it. They were memories of a world that didn't exist for him. It was fiction. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire is touched by your comradeship. Even so, Yoo Jong-hyuk didn't understand why he remembered this fiction so clearly. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire is rubbing her cheek against you. The burning archangel was watching him on the screen. Yoo Jong-hyuk muttered like a child first learning to speak. Boreal. Chapter 292. Happy Memories. Part 2. It had been approximately 20 minutes since the conversation with Han Su-yeong started. I was able to deduce a few pieces of information through the 3 questions. 1. The Han Su-yeong of the 1863rd round had contracted with secretive plotter through the Outer World Covenant. 2. Han Su-yeong of the 1863rd round might not be the alter ego of the 3rd round person. 3. The Han Su-yeong of the 1863rd round had more information, and was a bit smarter, than the 3rd one. I could combine them and deduce more information. For example, it was likely that this Han Su-yeong came from the same 3rd round as me. She also obtained information about the future through methods I didn't know. I spoke to Han Su-yeong. Thanks to you, I got some good information. Then all that's left is my last question? Do I have to answer? I know enough information about you now. Really? What do you know? Is that your 3rd question? No. Han Su-yeong licked her lips and smiled at me. Kim Dokja of the 3rd round. How am I there? The moment I was about to say that her right to ask a question was over, a cold sensation filled me. How did she know that I came from the 3rd round? Oh, based on your expression, I'm right? I was taken. Don't lie. You knew when you said it. Ahaha, I didn't. My gaze collided with Han Su-yeong in the air. Han Su-yeong moistened her lower lip and asked, "The third round, do I have a screw missing?" I took too many memories. You are doing well in your own way. Shouldn't you worry about yourself now? Are you covering for me? Then will you give me some information? You have read all the novel so you can show me this much generosity? I don't know what you're talking about. I was really curious about what type of person would read all of that novel, but you are more than I expected. Kim Dokja. The third round Han Su-yeong was formidable, but this one really wasn't ordinary. I said that I'm the writer. Han Su-yeong laughed. You're not the writer. You're too intelligent to write that novel. Although you are too stupid to deceive me. Only that reason. I also have a guess about what the author of Ways of Survival is. I almost asked her about the author. However, I couldn't reveal any loopholes in this place that might be a trap. I frowned and asked another question. If you thought I wasn't the writer, why ask the question in the first place? Let's see. Why did I? Han Su-yeong smiled leisurely. It wasn't that hard to guess. Han Su-yeong asked if I had written Ways of Survival. My answer admitted that I knew about Ways of Survival, damn. I decided to stop talking and ask the most important question. I will ask the last question. The third question ticket has been used. How did you survive up to the 95th scenario? You definitely couldn't have read Ways of Survival until the 95th scenario. Then a deafening noise occurred downstairs. Along with a beeping sound, Lee Hyun-sung hurriedly rushed up the emergency stairs into the suite and shouted, "Captain! It is serious." At the same time that Lee Hyun-sung spoke, the two angels in my arms also sent indirect messages. The constellation Lily Pin of Aquarius is shocked by something. The constellation Commander of the Red Cosmos is warning you. Han Su-yeong's eyes flashed. Your flowers. I ignored her and ran towards the outer window. I didn't know exactly what happened. However, if I was right. The shadow of a giant dragon flew outside the window. I wondered if someone had awakened the apocalypse dragon, but it wasn't possible. I gulped as I watched the giant dragon flapping its wings in the sky. Yes, why didn't I see it? Everyone, avoid it. I will do it alone. A woman in a white fur coat was leading the giant dragon. Beast Lord Shin Yu-sung. She was no longer a child and was guiding the party in the 95th scenario. The chimera dragon, that had evolved beyond a first-grade monster to special grade, breathed out. However, the overflowing flames weren't extinguished by the breath. Rather, they blazed even more with the poisonous substance. I knew these flames. The flames were the hell flames that blazed at the bottom of Eden. I knew that the future had changed with Han Su-yeong's intervention. However, this 1863rd turn was similar to the 1863rd turn I knew. For example, the name of the last remaining archangel in this fallen world. Boreal. The constellation demon-like Judge of Fire is furious. There was an explosive current and the outer window of the building was broken entirely. Shin Yu-sung's chimera dragon was falling. I leapt out the window and pierced through the wind. The helpless Shin Yu-sung fell into my arms. Shin Yu-sung looked up at me with surprise. Who? I'll stop the bleeding. I triggered the hit a pressure point skill and struck Shin Yu-sung's neck and arms. Then something waved inside me and a transparent string popped out from my fingertips. The fourth wall is making a playful expression. I noticed what he was trying to do. But the fourth wall is looking sullen. Che. I didn't want to tell the people of this world my story. It was strenuous and unfair. There was also nothing they could do to help me. I landed lightly on the ground and put Shin Yu-sung down. A little later, Lee Hyun-sung descended to the ground while carrying Han Su-yeong on his shoulder. Shin Yu-sung staggered up and spoke towards Han Su-yeong. Captain, I'm sorry. It's okay. Han Su-yeong jumped from Lee Hyun-sung's shoulder and patted Shin Yu-sung. I felt very strange as I watched the scene. The existence that was originally supposed to be. In that place was Yu Jong-hyuk. Coat. Han Su-yeong held out a hand and Lee Jae-hai took the white coat from Kim Namwon. Here it is, master. The white coat reduced its size to fit Han Su-yeong's body. I didn't know if it was my feeling, but it looked cooler than my coat. Han Su-yeong raised the collar of her coat and looked at Gwangwoman. The hell flames were burning in the dust cloud. The burnt constellations screamed helplessly. The remnants of the stars were turning to ask one by one. This was the field where the Archangel of Destruction, Uriel, descended. I watched the flames and asked Han Su-yeong. Do you know the reason why Uriel came here? What reason do you think? The destruction of Eden. Your guess is right. The flowers in my pocket trembled at the conversation. The constellation Lily Pin of Aquarius is asking what you mean. The constellation commander of the Red Cosmos is looking at you. Of course, they didn't know what happened to Eden in the 1863rd round. In fact, I didn't want them to know the truth. There were strange creatures coming from every corner of Gwangwoman where the white flames were burning. The unnamed things. The beings were attracted to Uriel's presence and flocked like moths towards the flames. I asked Han Su-yeong, do you need help? Thank you for your help. The Archangel of Flames is difficult to deal with. Yu Jong-hyuk waited for my orders and stared at me. Han Su-yeong continued speaking. If this continues, someone can die. I bit my lips. This round wasn't my round. Yu Jong-hyuk didn't have any colleagues in this round. Yu Jong-hyuk. Stop Uriel. At my words, Yu Jong-hyuk moved. In fact, I hadn't wanted to do this. Uriel discovered Yu Jong-hyuk and shouted as she lost her temper. Aha! It was natural. One of the reasons why Eden was destroyed was right before her eyes. The furious Uriel unleashed a wave of hell flames, and Yu Jong-hyuk's breaking the sky swordsmanship cut off the wave. The terrifying collision generated a tremendous shockwave in the sky. The third round, Yu Jong-hyuk and Uriel wouldn't have believed it if they saw the scene. I didn't want them to see it either. I wanted this scene to remain in my head. The vibrations from the flowers in my pocket were becoming worse. The impatient Gabriel couldn't bear it and spoke in her true voice. Why is Uriel attacking him? You know something. Right? I nodded. Tell me quickly. Otherwise, what good is it to say it? There was nothing that could be changed. No, maybe it shouldn't be changed. This fight was caused by the events of the 1863rd turn. Uriel's fury was justified and Yu Jong-hyuk had to endure the fury. I watched with clenched fists. Han Su-yeong spoke in an admiring voice by my side. You really can control Yu Jong-hyuk. I honestly didn't believe it. Can you stop the rest? No problem. I'll give you a reward. Han Su-yeong continued speaking. Didn't you ask me earlier? Why I could survive to this scenario? The character, Han Su-yeong, is talking about the story anticipation plagiarism. This is the answer. A white light emerged from Han Su-yeong's body. Her eyes shone brightly as she read the patterns of the incoming monsters. Future sight? There was no doubt. I didn't know the principles, but it was unmistakable, an ability like future sight. It was an ability that wasn't in the original novel. There is nothing new under the sun. Everything that is written is a modification of what has already been written. Han Su-yeong's story started flowing out in its entirety. She smashed unbroken faith towards the necks of the approaching monsters and laughed. I'm a first-rate writer. In addition, Ways of Survival is a collection of clichés at best. Do you think it's hard to predict the development? In the end, it's just a repetition of patterns. Han Su-yeong skillfully read the patterns and hunted the monsters. I watched the scene for a while and said, did you survive because of that? I had to admit that it was an excellent ability. Ways of Survival is a story full of complicated settings. Even if you are a writer, there are things you can do and things you can't do. Yes, you are right. The next moment, a white light rose from Han Su-yeong's body and countless clones rushed out. 10, 20, 30, in an instant, there were 100 clones holding unbroken faith. If there was only one of me. Han Su-yeong swung the sword in her hand and hundreds of Han Su-yeongs jumped into the battlefield at the same time. They weren't afraid of death and carefully attacked the unnamed things. Han Su-yeong continued to split apart. However, what if it becomes 2 or 3? The things that one person could do were different from what 100 people could do. The things that 100 people could do were different from what 1,000 people could do. Do you know? Things that will take one person a lifetime to do can be done by 10,000 people in 2 days. The exclusive skill, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, has been activated. Many voices pushed towards me at once, enough to overload me. The voices soon produced a single image. I realized it was the landscape of Han Su-yeong's mind. Numerous Han Su-yeongs were meeting there to conceive the world. This is wrong. The next development is like this. I'm sure he'll emerge. No, this is right. Archangel Uriel. Let's do a majority vote. Simulations of the world were drawn by Han Su-yeong. Perhaps Yu Jong-hyuk wasn't the only regressor. In someone's head, millions of worlds were born and broken. It was because a small mistake was made or because there was a very small defect. It was a scene where a story that pursued the extreme piled up. I fell into Han Su-yeong's story. The life of this story was sad and beautiful. Some were agreeable developments. Some were developments I hadn't even thought about. I didn't want to admit it, but I had to. Some reproductions went beyond the original. It was an effort to create a perfect, single development. This world was the result of Han Su-yeong's plan. I raised my head and looked at Yu Jong-hyuk. Yu Jong-hyuk kept swinging his sword even when his skin was torn and blood splashed. It was Uriel fighting against such a Yu Jong-hyuk. No colleagues would die. No destruction would happen. A world where everyone could gather their strengths and reach the last scenario. Damn it, I had no choice but to agree. In order for this world to be completed, Yu Jong-hyuk. Han Su-yeong stared at me. She seemed to understand what I was thinking. You know it by now. I don't need him in this world. The plagiarist, who dreamt of a world beyond the original, told me, I know how to kill Yu Jong-hyuk. Chapter 293. Happy Memories. Part 3. I know how to kill Yu Jong-hyuk. Those were Han Su-yeong's words. I hesitated for a moment before opening my mouth. You don't have to do something like that. A perfect story isn't the best story. From afar, there was a deafening roar from the collision between Yu Jong-hyuk and Uriel. The light that emanated from the sky filled Han Su-yeong's white eyes. Yu Jong-hyuk has to die in this scenario. That way, the world I am hoping for will be finished. What world are you hoping for? Didn't you look into my head? Yet you're still saying this? My voice was buried by another roar. It was a meaningless question in the first place. As Han Su-yeong mentioned, I got a glimpse of the world she dreamed of. It was a utopia without any gaps. It was an answer that only a person who digested the original novel in a completely different way could present. I turned my head and watched the battle between Yu Jong-hyuk and Uriel. In the world that Han Su-yeong dreamt of, the answer for this battle was as followed. The Archangel of Flames will die here. As if waiting, the party members gathered around Uriel and Yu Jong-hyuk's battlefield. Lee Jae-hai was preparing instant kill, Lee Hyun-sung charted up Great Mountain Smash, Kim Namwon was untying his bandage and seemed ready to call the abyssal black flame dragon. I grasped unbroken faith. Han Su-yeong noticed my movements and glared at me. Wait, you. It was obviously Han Su-yeong, not Yu Jong-hyuk, who made this world. But, so what? The constellation Demon King of Salvation is opening his status. In the first place, this wasn't the story I wanted to read. The small horns that symbolized a demon king rose from my head. I wanted to embody the wings, but it wasn't possible with the imperfect demon world spring. Han Su-yeong was surprised, but didn't stop me. Perhaps she thought it was impossible to stop the fight with my own strength. I knew it as well. By the way, now I wasn't alone. Gabriel, Jophiel. The constellation Lily Pin of Aquarius is looking at you. The constellation commander of the Red Cosmos is looking at you. Please help me. The Archangel says that it will require more probability than before. It doesn't matter. The moment I gave permission, the status of the two angels entered me. I felt my skin tearing, and something grew. The Archangel's status dwells within you. 6 wings grew from me, just like when I destroyed the constellations. The status of a demon king and an archangel are conflicting inside you. The stories that didn't mix screamed from inside me. An archangel's status was added to the power of a demon king. The wavelength that was impossible with common sense swept through the battlefield. What, this status? It was natural to be shocked. Now Uriel was the only archangel to survive in this world. Yet the status that could be felt from me belonged to an archangel. The Demon King Black Mane Lion is watching you. The Demon King Devil of Lust and Fury is looking at you. TL, slight change to Asmodeus modifier. It was surprising that the power of a Demon King and Archangel dwelt in one being. As far as I knew, there was only one existence in the world that could create this type of status in ways of survival. Demon King. Uriel felt my presence and looked over here. The moment I opened my mouth, Gabriel, who descended inside me, struck first. Uriel. Stop. What is this? The majesty of the Archangel's true voice caused a light of reason to return to Uriel's eyes. Gabriel? Are you out of your mind? What are you doing? Gabriel's true voice flowed through me. I looked at Uriel's cold eyes and belatedly realized the mistake. Look, these are the people you like. Yoo Jong-hyuk and Kim Dokja. You are always talking about them. The moment Gabriel's incarnation approached Uriel, her lips opened. What are you talking about? The confused Gabriel stiffened. Uriel continued speaking. You are alive, Gabriel. You also groveled to a demon king. What are you saying? Aha! Uriel's enormous magic power flooded the Gwangwaman area. Hell Flame's ignition was running wild and turning it into hell. I was able to see Yoo Jong-hyuk's coat melting away from the high temperature. The unnamed things were swept away by the after effects and scattered into pieces of meat. I shouted, Gabriel. The dazed Gabriel belatedly handed his strength to me. I will hear the explanation later. To be honest, I wasn't confident in explaining. They wouldn't be able to fathom what happened to Eden in the 1863rd round. Once the archangels of the third round knew the information, I didn't know what type of storm I would be swept up in or the psychologically damage Gabriel would receive. Because Gabriel of the 1863rd round betrayed Eden. Yoo Jong-hyuk. The moment I called out, Yoo Jong-hyuk cut the flames using Breaking the Sky swordsmanship. I plunged into the flames. 3 petals from Gabriel and Jophiel scattered in the air. There was a huge charge and something rose inside me. I took advantage of the reaction from the colliding magic power to instantly approach Uriel. I'm sorry, Uriel. I grabbed Uriel's head with both hands. The power of the white pure star energy and the status of the archangels and demon king struck Uriel's head. Uriel made a pained frown, but Uriel's momentum didn't decrease at all. Rather, her flames were encroaching towards me little by little. The high heat caused my wings and horns to melt slightly. I was the one who groaned first. This was the power of Eden's strongest combat angel. Uriel smiled brutally and called the hell flames to her hands. The hottest flames in the world. The moment that sharp blade of flames aimed at my heart. Jophiel. Huge sparks appeared at my fingertips and Uriel's body was surrounded by a circular restraint reminiscent of a halo. Uriel cried out with shock as the white constraints bound her. Uriel's status was reduced in an instant and the flames suddenly extinguished. Uriel was one of the most powerful archangels in Eden. No other angel could match her in fighting demons. However, what if the opponent was also an archangel? Archangel Jophiel. Unlike the other angels who focused on demon eradication, Jophiel had one more special ability: confinement of good and evil. Uriel's skill that was used to hunt fallen angels exerted strength against Uriel. Uriel tried to escape, but the restraint tightened. Uriel struggled before finally giving up on rebelling and collapsed. The archangel trapped by the constraints would fall into a deep sleep for a week. I hugged the sleeping Uriel and moved out of the fire with Yoo Jong-hyuk. I emerged from the smoke and saw the party members looking this way. Someone stared with astonishment, while others felt admiration. Someone else was staring at me with faint hostility. I watched Han Su-yeong. This is something that wasn't present in the world of your dreams. Uriel being dead or not has no impact on the big picture. You've seen it, so shouldn't you know? My visualization is perfect. Her white coat fluttered as Han Su-yeong walked towards me. She soon reached my nose and looked up at me. She glanced at the burned angel wings and broken demon horns and asked, "Kim Dokja, what world do you want? You have read the story to the end and there must be a world you want." I knew Han Su-yeong's words very well. What is the world that I want? They were the very words that Yoo Jong-hyuk always used when recruiting new colleagues. I told Han Su-yeong, "I'm not your colleague. I need you to complete this story." Han Su-yeong continued while pointing to Yoo Jong-hyuk. "Don't you also need the completion of a new story?" It seemed that she knew why I came to this world. I examined the faces of the party members one by one. Lee Hyun-sung, Lee Jae-hai, Lee Seolwa, Shin Yu-sung, Kim Namwon. So far, there was no round where all of them had survived up to this point. However, what's new about this story? I was watching Yoo Jong-hyuk, the only person not selected by this world. He repeated thousands of rounds to save this world, but this time, he had to die for the world. Han Su-yeong's world was also a world where someone must die in the end. There were countless other worlds like that, not just Han Su-yeong's world. You have read part of the original, changed the development and placed the name of another person in the place of the protagonist. Some reproductions might surpass the original. However, they could never be the original. Do you know what they call such an act? I wanted to have a relaxed smile, but now I wasn't in the mood. Han Su-yeong stared at me with blazing eyes. "This isn't the round you were in. Don't talk nonsense." Han Su-yeong no longer listened to me and turned away. "I'll give you 3 days. You better decide by then. Help me or don't help me. That's all I want to hear." The party members followed Han Su-yeong and entered the building one by one. Lee Hyun-sung helped Lee Seolwa transport patients. Lee Jae-hai and Kim Namwon glanced at me before looking away. This wasn't my round. The people in my round were waiting for me, and I could go back if I killed Yoo Jong-hyuk. I looked at Yoo Jong-hyuk. There were holes in his coat as Yoo Jong-hyuk stood there with foolish eyes. However, was that really all I had to do? Han Su-yeong was sweating when she opened her eyes in the darkness. There were faint sparks around her body. Her entire body was freezing cold. Han Su-yeong took a deep breath and rose from her spot. She turned on her smartphone and opened her novel file. SSSSS grade infinite regressor. Yoo Jun-hyun thought about it. "I'm afraid. Is it just up to here?" These were the contents of the saved pages. Nevertheless, Han Su-yeong read them. She read them again and again, as if the contents would be blown away if she didn't. How long did she read? The sparks around her started shrinking. She barely managed a sigh. If she had been a bit later, her existence itself would be swallowed up by the sparks. It wasn't the first time. It was the probability storm gnawing at my memories. It wasn't known if this was a side effect of the excessive use of Avatar or related to ways of survival. The star stream is watching incarnation, Han Su-yeong. Han Su-yeong bit her lips and relaxed her body. Her shoulders and wrists hardened by the side effects were checked one by one. She could feel the eyes of countless constellations on her. Han Su-yeong thought, look as much as you like. I didn't start this just to end here. After warming up, the coldness in her bones were gone. Han Su-yeong put on a coat and glanced out the window. Kim Dokja and her party members could be seen. They were awkward on the first day, but after a few days, they were chatting. It was strange. Those who had gone through 94 scenarios and were filled with distrust quickly opened their hearts to him. Kim Dokja. The variable that appeared at the end of this plan. Why did secretive plotter send another covenant at this point? Han Su-yeong didn't know the answer. She just knew that she had to use Kim Dokja. Yoo Jong-hyuk was standing blankly in a corner of the square. Han Su-yeong watched for a while, before jumping out the window. Han Su-yeong landed beside Yoo Jong-hyuk and opened her mouth. It has been 2 days. Yoo Jong-hyuk didn't answer. Han Su-yeong slowly watched Yoo Jong-hyuk. His blank eyes seemed to hear nothing. Han Su-yeong stared into his eyes and suddenly approached him. You really aren't conscious? Han Su-yeong's hand grabbed Yoo Jong-hyuk's chin. Yoo Jong-hyuk didn't react. How funny. I can't believe this is happening. Did you forget that you promised to die? At this close distance, Yoo Jong-hyuk's face was covered with scars. They were traces of a lonelier battle than any other round. Han Su-yeong looked at such a Yoo Jong-hyuk. She felt both sympathetic and angry. Han Su-yeong removed her hand from Yoo Jong-hyuk's chin and pulled out a cigarette. Smoke appeared as she lit it up. In the distance, the people surrounding Kim Dokja shouted at something he said. Han Su-yeong blew out smoke. The world is unfair. Some people find it easy to get along with others using a few words, while some people egress so much and feel out of place. Didn't you write down some good memories for me? You could have done enough. No, it's fine. There was no way you could do it. Han Su-yeong stepped on the cigarette ash that fell. Don't blame me for killing you when you don't remember. I did everything you asked me to do. Han Su-yeong walked towards her party members. Yoo Jong-hyuk watched Han Su-yeong moving away with empty eyes. A dim light was returning to Yoo Jong-hyuk's blank eyes. Chapter 294. Happy Memories. Part 4. 2 days had passed since I started staying at Han Su-yeong's headquarters. In the meantime, I had to concentrate on a few things. One was to reveal exactly what Han Su-yeong meant by the death of Yoo Jong-hyuk. The second was to find out what Han Su-yeong ultimately wanted to achieve through it. Either way, finding out wasn't easy. This wasn't the only problem. It is really destroyed? Our Eden? I looked at Gabriel, who was exuding a ferocious spirit. That's right. Didn't you hear anything about it from the third round Metatron? The scribe knows about the destruction of Eden? I nodded. If you go back, ask him yourself. Of course, that's if you can go back safely. The stems of Gabriel and Jophiel started to shake. I thought they were angry with me, but they seemed to be talking to each other. I pulled out the Uriel doll. She was caught by the confinement of good and evil and couldn't use her strength for the next 5 days. The fourth wall is looking at you. Maybe I could borrow the power of the fourth wall to give her memories of the third round. However, the idea that Uriel would be moved by my memories was just a fantasy. Maybe after seeing the memories, Uriel would say, so what? The memories of the third round would sound like a novel to Uriel, who had lived through the third round. Kim Dokja Sasai, are you going to hunt with us? I looked up and saw Lee Hyun-sung standing there with steel gauntlets on. Is it okay if I go with you? Yes, well, there is no meaning in identifying a picked-up bullet. I smiled at Lee Hyun-sung's words. Whether it was the third round or the 1863rd round, the strange analogies were still there. I calculated how many times Lee Hyun-sung must have been confined in the guardhouse so far. Your understanding of the character Lee Hyun-sung has increased. The character Lee Hyun-sung shows a weak liking towards you. I recalled the first scenario and suddenly felt a bit distracted. I added a sentence to alleviate Lee Hyun-sung's wariness. shouldn't you be more vigilant? I am Yu Jong-hyuk's companion. Captain didn't say anything and, as a matter of fact, I feel that Dr. Sasai isn't a bad person. I guess this is the intuition I gained after 94 scenarios. Throughout the novel, Lee Hyun-sung's intuition was mostly off the mark. Whenever Lee Hyun-sung said this, I used to think that Yu Jong-hyuk would be stabbed in the back. Hey, you came? Let's take a look at your skills. Those who went out to hunt together were Kim Namwon and Lee Jae-hai. Lee Jae-hai was covered with a big gray hood and looked at me in a displeased manner. Come quickly. We're going to start. I followed the party members out of the headquarters. The purpose of this hunt was to clean up the unnamed things around the headquarters and collect the items. Of course, I knew the real reason why Han Su-yeong ordered this hunt. There are two ahead of you. One is a tentacled species, and the other is a composite species. Han Dong-hun's message was heard and Lee Jae-hai pulled out her sword. She triggered instant kill to defeat all the tentacles, and then Kim Namwon burned the main body with his black flames. I felt it when I read the original, but the two of them were really well matched. There was a terrible scream as the monster turned to ashes, and Kim Namwon approached Lee Jae-hai. Nice attack. Kim Namwon raised his right hand towards Lee Jae-hai with a cool face. Lee Jae-hai aimed her sword at Kim Namwon with cold eyes. The sword pierced past Kim Namwon's cheek and penetrated the tentacle that was wriggling around as the unnamed thing struggled with the flames. Lee Jae-hai moved towards the next prey. Kim Namwon chased after her. Hey, let's go together. Once Gil-young and Yu-sung grew up, would they be a duo like this? I might see such a scene if I went back. Dr. Sasai? Ah, yes. I'll take the other side. I hurriedly pulled out Unbroken Faith and activated Way of the Wind. Some flying tentacles penetrated during an unguarded moment. It was a bit tricky to deal with the unnamed things when I deliberately wasn't using electrification. Kukik, you're weak? Kim Namwon, who had the black flames in both hands, started to beat up the unnamed things with a careless smile. Watch and learn. Certainly, it was a great combat force. The present Kim Namwon was able to draw out half the power of the abyssal black flame dragon. I quietly cheered on Kim Namwon. You're great. It is coming again. Ha ha ha, give it to me. Wow, no matter how good you are, isn't it hard? What are you talking about? Ha 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 ha. Die. Hey, there's that one over there. Kim Namwon belatedly noticed something and his eyebrows twitched. Lee Hyun-sung, standing nearby, was smiling. In the distance, Lee Jae-hai caught a monster and clicked her tongue like he was pitiful. The moment Kim Namwon's expression distorted and he raised his fist towards me, I told him, Lee Jae-hai doesn't like pretentiousness. Kim Namwon's face turned as white as his hair. His eyes shook like an earthquake had occurred. In fact, the one who had the biggest reaction was Lee Hyun-sung, whose eyes widened. This guy passed through every round without noticing. Kim Namwon glanced between Lee Jae-hai and I before stammering. How do you know that? It would be strange if I didn't know. Dye your hair first and get rid of the bandages. Replace them with half gloves on both sides. After the hunt, don't say things like nice attack. The constellation Abyssal Black Flame Dragon hates you. It will be more helpful if you act like the guy behind me. Kim Namwon blinked as he looked at the person behind me. Yu Jong-hyuk was standing there blankly. His coat was crooked and he hadn't washed himself, but he couldn't hide his good looks. That person is evil. Still, he looks cool. Delusional demon, Kim Namwon muttered. I answered with a smile. He isn't too bad. He has good parts. Ha, you must be talking about someone else. That reminds me, how did you end up as Yu Jong-hyuk's companion? Kim Namwon watched me suspiciously and Lee Hyun-sung spoke up. I heard that Dr. Sasai is from another world. Maybe Han Su-yeong had talked about me. Kim Namwon looked surprised and pointed at me. Different worlds? Like, parallel universes? It is similar. I admired the fact that Kim Namwon knew about parallel universes when he had no biology knowledge. Obviously, this round was different from the round I remembered. That's why I haven't seen you so far. So? Why did you come here? You're excited. Unfortunately, I can't tell you. Sheesh, then what am I doing in your world? Am I a leader? You're dead. Kim Namwon's face paled again. I'm joking. You're building a Gundam there. You are very happy. Gundam? Oh. Lee Jai-hai came back and hit the back of Kim Namwon's head. Why are you messing around? Pick up the items. I watched Kim Namwon hurriedly picking up items after Lee Jai-hai and thought. Maybe I shouldn't have killed him in the first scenario. Kim Namwon, who was following Lee Jai-hai and picking up items, turned to me and whispered, "Excuse me. I have something to ask." What? Can you lend me that coat for a minute? What was I saying? I see you. Kim Namwon grumbled and started picking up the items again. Lee Jai-hai nagged him and Lee Hyun-sung chuckled. It was a peaceful sight. In the midst of this peace, I was strongly reminded of my world. There was no Young Hee-won here. No Yu Sanga or Lee Gil-young. Yes, Han Myung-go as well. Thus, I had to go back. Not long after, we collected all the items around us. I looked at the items I collected and smiled. There it was. One of the 5 swords that were the key to clear the 95th scenario. Perhaps Han Su-yeong knew that one of the swords was in the vicinity. However, I was surprised the moment I held the sword. Excuse me, Hyun-sung SSI. Huh? Did Han Su-yeong tell you to collect this sword? Lee Hyun-sung glanced at the sword in my hand and replied, "Oh, that's right. We are looking for that sword." The 95th scenario was a scenario where 5 swords were the key. A scenario where the sealed Apocalypse Dragon was released through the key 5 swords. But this sword? A sense of discomfort passed through my head. I looked up at the sky and saw the Apocalypse Dragon sealing ball heading this way. Sleeping inside the dark sphere was the worst ruined dragon in Ways of Survival. Originally, Yu Jong-hyuk was supposed to liberate the dragon and gain the giant story Liberator of the Apocalypse Dragon, entering the final scenario. At this moment, Kim Dokja realized how to kill Yu Jong-hyuk. The hand holding the hilt trembled. In addition, Han Su-yeong was thinking exactly the same thing as him. Throughout the day, Kim Dokja read Ways of Survival again and again. He read the pages he had already read and checked if there were any lines he missed. Kim Dokja seemed to find something. Or perhaps he didn't find it. He looked down at his smartphone, grabbed his head several times, and even sighed. Noisy. Stop talking. Sometimes, he scolded the 4th wall. In any case, Kim Dokja tried hard. It was an effort to change something, an effort that perhaps no one would understand. Soon a small resolution filled Kim Dokja's eyes. It wasn't a resolution that could accumulate in 1 or 2 days. It was a resolution that only a person who had read a story for a long time could have. With that resolution, Kim Dokja continuously read Ways of Survival. He read, and read it again. How many times did he read? Kim Dokja's eyes, shining like stars, dimmed little by little. Kim Dokja fell into a shallow sleep. Yu Jong-hyuk stared at the scene with empty eyes. The back of the weary Kim Dokja. A snoring sound came out at regular intervals. There were very small sparks as Yu Jong-hyuk's eyes recovered. Killing intent filled the blank eyes, and this killing intent was aimed at precisely one person. Yu Jong-hyuk quietly moved the heaven-shaking sword. He didn't make a sound as he approached and aimed a sword at Kim Dokja's neck. Haha, do not do so chthing. Yu Jong-hyuk frowned. The 4th wall caused sparks to fly, as if going to wake up Kim Dokja straight away. Yu Jong-hyuk sent a message to the illusionary wall using sound transmission. Don't wake him up. I will cut off his head straight away if you do. The sparks produced by the 4th wall rapidly reduced. Yu Jong-hyuk didn't remove the sword and the fourth wall drew characters in the air. WH at DYNT? Yu Jong-hyuk didn't say anything. It seemed like he was finding his words or he didn't know what to say. At this time, the fourth wall let out bizarre laughter. Aha, I understand. Are you serious? Yu Jong-hyuk still didn't answer and the fourth wall laughed like it knew everything. The letters of the fourth wall started to increase. Gold letters soon filled the room. Yu Jong-hyuk stared at the letters drifting around him and reached out for one of them. The letters seemed to respond to his hand and started to speak. My name is Dokja. I usually introduced myself to people like this, and then the following misunderstanding would occur. It was the story of a world he had never experienced. The fourth wall giggled. Dairy te residential ting. Yu Jong-hyuk quietly listened to the story. This lasted until the night was deep and then the faint light of dawn was seen. By the time the sleeping Kim Dokja woke up, Yu Jong-hyuk was leaning against the wall with blank eyes. I fell asleep, damn. Kim Dokja stood up with disheveled hair and picked up his smartphone and sword. He looked out the window and saw the troops of the headquarters that had already gathered. They were gathered to clear the 95th scenario. At the center of the party, Han Su-yeong in the white coat was looking this way. Today was the day that Incarnation Yu Jong-hyuk would die.